I think it was this on a Sunday that I had an assignment that I was supposed to look up some lyrics. Skip a rope. Now, before I read out loud these lyrics, I'm going to make sure there's nothing ugly. No, I don't see anything ugly. No, don't sing it. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed your extra hour of sleep this morning. Do I? Hey, falling back on the clock means nothing to me, except that instead of getting woke up at 5:30, I get woke up at 4:30. That's what it means to me. Yeah, I do too. That means we're going to have darker afternoons. But anyway. Yeah. Skip a rope, skip a rope. Oh, listen to the children while they play. Now, ain't it kind of funny what the children say? Daddy hates mommy, mommy hates dad. Last night you should have heard the fight they had. Gave little sister another bad dream. She woke us all up with a terrible scream. Skip a rope, skip a rope. Oh, listen to the children while they play. Ain't it kind of funny what they say? That's the chorus. Cheat on your taxes. Don't be a fool. Now, what was that they said about a golden rule? Never mind. The rule's just play to win and hate your neighbor for the shade of his skin. Stab him in the back. That's the name of the game. And mommy and daddy are who's to blame. That fits so well of what we're talking about today. Isn't that funny how sometimes we study the Bible and then we hear a song or we read a book and we're like, something's familiar here. And, well, it's all in relation. It all comes from one origin, really. The stories and things like that. Don't be surprised where they get their ideas from songs and stories and movies. But anyway, that does fit the narrative of what we're studying. And we're in Romans chapter 13, where we began, where Paul is discussing about the Christian's attitude when it comes to civil government. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. Or you have the King James, receives to themselves damnation or condemnation. Those who resist the government sin. And we discussed, or we began to discuss, well, what about those who want to protest or want their voices heard? And Brother Kelly Webb, I recall vividly, how do we do that? We do it how? According to what? Yeah, God's law is being in accordance to the law. So if we want to make our voices heard, if we want to make a change, we do so peacefully. We do so lawfully. If we choose, well, they're not hearing us, let's get violent. Let's do something that's just outrageous or extreme so that they will look at us. That's overstepping our bounds. And it doesn't get the result that is desired. The riots 2 years ago, as I said before, at the beginning, those who were protesting, and they were, I guess, peacefully, I don't know, but it got worse, obviously, and it got bad. They had support in the beginning, but now they're losing support. And why is that? Because they're being unlawful. They're being unreasonable. They're being hateful. And that never gets the result, okay? Imagine if Christians acted like that. You and I, we have a cause. We have a reason to be here. We are to preach the gospel to every creature. Well, how do we do that? Do we go to the government building with signs and start picketing and say, you must convert to Christianity or you will die? And then we force people to do that. Does that get the desired result? No, absolutely not. What if Jesus acted that way? I mean, he was hated enough, wasn't he? He was hated enough because of the truth. People didn't like that. But what if he went even further? I don't think you and I would be sitting here today. But he didn't do that. It was prophesied that he wouldn't do that. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 42 and read the first 4 verses. Isaiah chapter 42 and read the first 4 verses.
Behold, my servant whom I upheld, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him, he shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoke flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. He shall not fail, nor be discouraged, till he have set judgment in the earth, and the people shall wait for his law.
Yeah, the isle shall wait for his law. I mean, imagine if our Savior just caused havoc in not by truth, but just by behavior. He says, my servant will not strive nor cry or make his voice heard in the streets. There's a lot of people that get attention, right? But they get it in the wrong way. That wasn't his tactics. That would have been unfruitful. Our work as Christians is not to be done through or acting like a circus, if you will. The Lord never, ever used those kind of procedures, and he had too high regard for his great work, and you and I shouldn't demean our mission by being disgraceful. And that's absolutely true. All right, let's go back to Romans 13. Yes, sir.
We can't ignore the fact that Jesus did get angry and got physical. He cleansed the temple on 2 occasions. So he wasn't always peaceful. He did get angry and cleanse the temple. Now, he never hurt anybody, but he did cleanse the temple.
Yeah, he did.
But he physically overturned tables, created a whip, ran people off.
Was it right?
Perfect, so it was.
Yep, there it is.
I'm just saying, you can't ignore that. I'm saying, we talk about Jesus was peaceful, he was loving, he did do that though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's peaceful to rebuke, or it's loving to rebuke. Absolutely. And that's actually my sermon this morning. So I got to be careful. But yes, to warn is to love for sure. But Jesus. Right. Okay. Sure. Did he beat people up? He didn't hurt anybody. Okay. Yeah, he did. I mean, sure. And then the Pharisees came to him and said, by what authority do you do this? Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's always right. Very good.
But he was not afraid to speak up and say, this is what the word says.
Yes.
And in that sense, he was a true man because he spoke truth in that sense.
Absolutely.
He called the Pharisees snakes in the grass.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. All this is right, but it's not beyond law. In fact, Jesus, it shouldn't have got to the point where Jesus had to do that. You see what I'm saying? It should have never got to that point. We're kind of going sideways. It would have been right if his followers did that, because what they were doing, the money changers, was absolutely sinful. So no, you don't go up and beat people up because they're sinful. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but no, you don't do that. I mean, again, there would be no desired. There will be the end result would not be the one desired. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right. Right. I think I may have been misunderstood, or maybe I said it in the wrong way, or whatnot. You know, Isaiah, he says his voice. What that means is he's not going to act unlawful to get his way, to get his attention. He certainly was bold, and he certainly did things that turned the world upside down for sure. But all of that was right. That's within the law. Okay, he did not break any laws. Okay, right. Very good. And that's another point. I'm glad you said that. And we're going to get into that here in just a second. Is there a point or a reason when we do not obey civil government? See, all of you spoke up, and I'm grateful for that. Yes. Yes. If it's against the law to be a Christian, guess what, brothers and sisters? Lock us up. Right? Absolutely. Sure.
But the comfort's got to come in that latter part here, into the sense of, for there is no authority except for God. That's the comfort of it right there.
Absolutely.
So as we read these 1 through 13, that right there has got to stay at number one.
Absolutely. And if we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, if we keep reading, let's look at verse 3. Okay. This is what the design of civil government is supposed to be. Okay. And yet you and I today, we have a different view of civil government. We lack respect of civil government, not because we're against the design of it, but because of the abuse of the people who are elected in those offices. Okay. But this is the design here. If you look at verse 3, for rulers are not a terror to good work. What does that mean? If you do what you're supposed to, and if you do it with the attitude, the right motive, see, we obey government because God told us to, not because we're scared of going to jail. We obey government because God told us to. If we do that, the government is not, we should be scared of it. We have no reason to be scared of it because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. They're a terror to the evil. They're supposed to be. Wilt thou then not be afraid of power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. This is the general rule about civil rulers right here. In normal circumstances, and notice I emphasize that, in normal circumstances, in the design that God has given, they're not supposed to be a danger to their subjects. God has given you and me, what a blessing it is to be an American, right? We have a voice, or supposed to have a voice, in who is to rule our government. And we want to put those people in office who will not be a danger to us. But there are people who are being appointed and voted in who are a danger to us. They're a danger to children in the womb. They're a danger to children outside of the womb with laws and legislation. Don't have to tell mom and daddy if you want to identify as such and such. That's scary. That's very scary. Canada, a dad got arrested for misgendering his daughter and had to go to jail. It's on, and they are appointing people in government who are a danger to subject. But according to God, it's not supposed to do that. All right? I'm getting a little excited. I guess it means because 2 days, I'm on edge. Who's going to win? Who's not going to win? I don't care about D's and R's. I care about what's right and what's wrong. Period. Okay? So I'm not up here campaigning for anybody. But anyway, except for Clay Doggett. All right. Anyway, but they're supposed to enact laws to encourage peace and safety. Isn't that on the ballot this term? It's always been on the ballot, but especially, and is it obvious this time? It certainly is. They're supposed to provide a situation in which the citizens may earn a living, a decent living, and provide for their families. The government is in charge of that, to give us a situation to where we can fairly work and provide. Okay? Again, even that's being attacked. They want to tax certain people and not tax certain people. They're wanting this word called equity. I don't even know what that is anymore. It's what it's doing. It's being unfair to people. It's being unfair. Only those who violate the law, those who do evil. The government is supposed to be a terror to them. Look, I don't want to go to jail, so I'm not going to break any laws. Some people don't care and say, well, I guess I'm going to jail, and laugh about it. There's no reverence or respect with the laws. They just can't help themselves, I guess. I don't know. I can't empathize. I'm not in that mindset. But we're supposed to be law-abiding citizens. Christians are. And so there ought not to be any reason to fear civil authority. Lawbreakers, though, according to God's plan, should have much to fear. But these days, there is lack of fear of civil government. The criminals don't fear the civil government. Now, why is that? That's exactly right. Light sentences, probation. You murder somebody, you're in jail maybe, 8 years? Why? And then how did we get to that situation? Lack of respect for authority. And where does that respect begin? There it is, in the home.
I think the point that kind of came out on Wednesday that kind of was enlightening to me is so pertinent right here to the situation here. We think that anybody's got the right, and they do, to rule and govern the land and do all these things. I think what's important to make sure that from the very beginning of how God created everything was, He created mankind to be in His image. Then He created the creation of this land. He wants mankind to be pure and to be holy.
Right.
He wants this land to be pure and to be holy. So I think as I read this, what gives me comfort is the understanding of, what, everybody's got a right to live, but God ultimately wants to be supreme and to govern, and He wants things to be set in order of how He originally created it.
Yes.
And in this sense, that's how important it is to make sure that there is a character and God traits in each of us so that we become righteous and God's sight. And also in the sense of that the land that we should be clean and pure. And when you think about those things, people that are coming into power should have those attributes that my former
Certainly.
They
Hmm.
should have that, so that mankind is pure. And when I'm not saying perfect in any sense,
Right.
but is walks that righteousness life, and then our land that we're in should be righteousness. And then as you read this, as people that come in and they take in, they should have those same attributes. And that's up to us to make sure that we continue to share and spread that word that we carry today.
Very good. And the problem we have today is that those who donate money to these super PACs and things like that, they're not looking for the best candidate for the job. Who are they looking for? They're looking for puppets. That's what they're looking for. That's obvious. That's obvious. I don't want to get any further than that. Just watch the news and you'll see some candidates that are not mentally capable of actually doing the job, but they're still donating money and still campaigning for these people to be in that office. And the only reason why they want them in there, they want puppets to do their bidding and to do their will. It's very dangerous. And so they'll say some things that are just absolutely insane.
There's a lot of corruption in any government, but we need civil government.
Yes, sir.
And it's a rational, but it's a man run.
Absolutely. It's as long as it's according. If it were according to His design, we'd be okay. We'd be peaceful. We would be safe, and we can get on. We can go on with our business and doing what needs to be done. Absolutely, they did, and they want to say that it wasn't, but it certainly was. It was founded on biblical principles, and we need to get those biblical principles back. So laws are needed. They're needed to maintain order. They're needed to have peace, to ensure the maintenance of law and order. There's a police force. There's a judicial system. But sometimes, again, those are corrupt, and you get judgments, you get false arrests, you get all these other things. And then the problem then there is that the citizens no longer trust that. And then you have more chaos. But God's plan here, verse 3, rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good. If you don't want to be fearful, then do what you're supposed to be doing, and you'll receive His reproval. Here's the reason. I wish they all would know this. For He is God's servant for your good. If all elected officials knew that they are there where they are because God had put them there, they're supposed to be doing what according to His plan. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for He does not bear the sword in vain, for He is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Someone read Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20.
Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter.
Woe unto them that call what? Evil good and good evil. You think that's where we're at? I think that's where we've been for a long time, and now it's getting more obvious with the access that we have with internet and social media and all those other things. It's now out there. And then we have become desensitized to it. I think so. Sure. There's nothing new under the sun. Yeah, it's been under wraps.
bold now.
Yeah. They're very bold, and they parade it. They're very bold, and they parade it out there. And our children are seeing this, and they're being trained on it. That's why the respect for authority starts in the home. And you and I, we've got to be in our children's lives. There's no question to this. That's my sermon tonight, so I need to be careful there too. So anyway,
You're right, it is nothing to do with the son. Even Jesus was condemned for healing on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
What was good, evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were calling what Jesus was doing, which is good, evil. Very good. Yeah, that's right. Very good. Does the government have authority for the death penalty? It does. It certainly does. That's another design of civil government. Those, as soon as the land dried up and Noah got out of the ark, God made a law about the innocent. Whoever spilled the blood of the innocent, by man shall his blood be spilled. And yet we have those who are against the death penalty, those who say it's immoral, when actually it's the design of God. If we carried out these laws like it's supposed to, do you think we'd have as much crime in the nation? Ma'am?
Ecclesiastes 8, verse 11 says, because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly, and for the hearts of sons of men among them are given fully.
Say that verse one more time so everybody can hear that.
Ecclesiastes 8, verse 11, and it says obey rules at the top of that.
Ecclesiastes 8:11. Okay, that's exactly what I just said. The man's heart will not be fearful of the government or the executioner if there's no execution, right? Timely. Yeah, very good. Timely. Yeah, because there are those on death row who've been there for, 25 years? Whew. Raymond said, and this is according to Raymond's research. Yeah. I'll let you research it because I didn't research it, but I'll just repeat what he said. It costs more for an inmate to be on death row than it is to put one in prison for life. Yeah, takes 20 to 30 years to execute somebody, for sure.
Right back in chapter 13, verse 4, it doesn't say he bears the feather in back. He bears
The sword. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good. All right, go back to Romans 13:5. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. So here's our motive here. We want to obey the civil government because we must be in subjection, not to avoid God's wrath, but also not to bother our conscience here. We have two reasons. We want to avoid the penalty, the earthly penalty, and we also want to avoid the spiritual penalty. That's why we obey civil government. Okay? Obeying the law only to avoid punishment may be good enough for non-believing citizens, right? We would call them good people, and by our standard, perhaps they are. But it's not good enough for us. A Christian, we work in the spiritual realm, don't we? We certainly do. We also work in the physical, but I want to please the civil authorities to please God. That is my motive. God requires that his people maintain a pure conscience, always has, to do what's necessary, live up to what we believe is right. Now, let me talk about that conscience for a second, but also for conscience sake. Are there people who live evil lives have a good conscience? What I mean by a good conscience is it doesn't bother them. It doesn't bother them. Yeah, That's exactly right. You know, I could do things and it doesn't bother me because my conscience says, hey, yeah, that's a smart thing to do. Go ahead and do it. But it's probably sinful. You see, we must obey our conscience, but our conscience must be trained according to the standard. It has to be. There are millions of people right now who are worshiping God in their way, and it doesn't bother them because they feel or they think that it's the right thing to do. It doesn't bother their conscience. But if it were trained according to God's standard, to God's word, it would bother their conscience. One of the first Sundays, and I think I told y'all this before, right after becoming a Christian, I think it was a Sunday or two after the fact, Erica and I got tickets to a show in Nashville, and Sunday was the only day we could go. So we decided to drive up and just stop and worship somewhere before we went to the show in Nashville, and we went to the Otter Creek. And it was this big, humongous building. I'm a new Christian. I thought, oh, cool, a huge building. I'd like to see hundreds of Christians, worshiping God. And we got in there and we felt filthy. It bothered our conscience because they weren't worshiping according to the standard. I was the only one in a suit. Not that you have to be in a suit, but that just conveyed attitude already. I felt different. I felt just like, man, I'm overdressed. Each congregation, they have their own identity or personality or whatnot, and that's for another day. But then they had the praise team on stage, so they had men and women on stage singing, and it was a cappella. People will say, well, that's nothing wrong because it's a cappella. But now, as I understand it, they now worship with mechanical instruments. See how it works? Just one further step. So there was that, and then and the clapping. There was clapping during their songs and things like that. So it was completely, utterly unauthorized. And so my conscience was bothered. Now, there are people there that they thought they were doing right. And if you try to tell them, they'll say, well, you shouldn't be judging me or something like that. We have to train our conscience toward this. I've got to train my conscience toward civil government to be respectful and have reverence to that. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous because there's some enticing things out there where you may look at an elected official and you may just feel disgusted every time you see their picture. Be careful. Be careful. Okay? Even though we don't agree with them, okay, we still have to be reverent. I have to have reverence for that office. If not, then what's going to happen? It's already happening. Chaos. Chaos. I mean, this country is polarized. I've never seen anything like it. It started, in my view, 20 years ago. 22 years ago. I believe the 2000 election was the first time we didn't know who our president was until days after the election. I think I saw a statistic like that. And you know how chaotic that was and how uneasy that was. We have to be very, very careful. Yes, ma'am. I'll leave.
I cannot understand. My family attended Otter Creek when it was raining like fire
Yeah.
for years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
But I have people that I went to school with at David Lipscomb at the new Otter Creek,
Yeah.
and I can't understand how it's written right here, and people just think it's okay.
Breaks your heart. It certainly does. Breaks your heart. Yeah. I can't be a busybody. I've got to worry about Fairview because that's where my family attends. And that's what we're going to do. If our elders step out of line, it's just to talk to them and say, hey, we're stepping out of line. But as long as they're on the straight and narrow and keeping us on the straight and narrow, we obey them always. Okay. All right. Real quick, because we got to go. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I don't mean to giggle, but never mind. I can't say it. All right. Love y'all so much. Next time, we'll keep studying on this.